One thing that's been interesting to me as we have recorded, and I say we, me and Chris and Jules been in the room recording these stories of these couples, is the phrase that kept coming up is, well, they really balance me. They really balance me. Mm-hmm. And when I was preaching at Live Oak this Sunday, I made a comment about the line from Jerry Maguire, "You complete me." Because that phrase, "you complete me," is all about, well, I need something from you. You've got to fulfill me. You've got to satisfy me. It's up to you, all this stuff. But yet you balance me is, I think, the healthy side of that. Yeah. We are made to complement one another, but complementing one another is different than completing one another.
Welcome to Let's Talk About That, the podcast where we take a deeper dive into Sunday's message and explore any questions you might have. I'm your host, AJ Stevens, joined by lead pastor Chip Parker, and I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you. Whether you're a longtime member of the Orchard or a first-time visitor, Let's Talk About That is your space to explore, reflect, and connect. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of faith, spirituality, and daily life, seeking to understand how the wisdom shared on Sundays can be applied to our modern challenges. So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable space, and let's dive in together. This is Let's Talk About That, where the conversation about Sunday's message never stops. All right, we're back on a Monday morning, and I just learned today Chris has programmed all these incredible noises into our soundboard. You know what I mean? Like, that's incredible, and I'm just now learning about it, which is sad because this is my last podcast ever with you guys. Maybe not ever. This is my last podcast officially.
I felt like there should have been a sound effect to follow that.
Wait for it. Nobody cares. Oh, man.
That was good.
But it's good. Oh, it's still cricketing. But okay. All right. But it's a good full circle moment for me because our guests on the podcast today, Chip, are Chris and Jules. That's how I know them. How do you know them, Chip?
I know them as the co-owners of Thrive Communication.
Nice. Very good. Very good. I love it. Jules,
absolutely not Mr. and Mrs. Ducey.
I know it's
All right, I gotta leave the buttons on. That's phenomenal.
All right, so I need to clear this up, right? Deucer is short for producer, and anybody who thinks differently, just grow up, okay? Grow up, people.
Yeah.
Producer.
Yeah, that's good.
Of our show.
But we have them here for a reason, and we're gonna get to all that. But this is Jules' maiden voyage.
Yeah, first time on the pod here.
And that's a big deal because during the maiden voyage, there's a question that everybody has to come face to face with. Have you been prepared?
a little bit.
You have prepared?
Yeah.
You know the question.
Yeah, I know.
Like, how long did you think about this answer?
How long have I thought about this, Chris?
I think it just comes up in conversation. Like, what would you pick as your
favorite? So this isn't like in preparation for today.
No.
You've been thinking about it for a while.
Yeah.
You've had time to marinate on it.
Yeah, just in case.
Okay.
Gotta always be ready.
Yeah, no, that's right. In season, out of season, you know.
But I think I love even more that we have so much free rent space available in her head that she's having organic conversations with her husband at home, like, hey,
our job.
Just thinking.
Yeah,
maybe
I'm not sure it's leisure. I'm not sure it's leisure activity. They are the ones who produce. See what I did there? Our podcast and publish it and promote it and all the fun stuff.
So it probably comes up pretty organically.
I was going to say we talk about y'all a lot.
Yeah. Oh, I'm flattered.
But I don't know where to go there.
Wait a minute.
No,
I got nothing for that.
You waited too long.
For that one.
Waited too long.
No buttons. All right, Jules. Well, here's the moment. If you were a flavor, any combination of flavors, what would you be?
So I've thought about it, and I think that I would be salted caramel.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Why salted?
So I think the salted is because I'm very sarcastic. If you know me, I'm pretty sarcastic, I would say. And so that's where the salt comes in.
Why the caramel?
A lot of times whenever people first meet me, they do always say, oh, she's so sweet, she's so this. And so I feel like the salt kind of comes in on that though too, in that way. So yeah.
Okay.
And like the sweet little sarcastic. Yeah. I don't know. What would you say, Chris?
Yeah, I was about to ask Chris for confirmation anyway, so I appreciate that. That's great.
That's 100% how it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought Chris was going to be like, my favorite ice cream topping is salted caramel. You know, just kind of acknowledging generally the without having to get into the dealing with the. Now Chris is like 100%.
Is vanilla. So.
Oh.
With strips of caramel.
Okay.
There it is.
Wow.
There it is.
Right.
I don't want to over-affirm this, but Jules, in our professional career together, if you will, I have seen the salted caramel come out, and I have seen the sweet, innocent, you're doing a great job, sometimes followed by, I don't like that even a little bit. We need to redo that. Or I think you need to stand differently. That is not, just the whole gamut of that. So I at least in your professional career, I have absolutely seen that to be true. And I think, you have a good match over there, because I've seen the salted caramel come out in your husband multiple times as well. Last week was a great example.
Chris. I love me some Chris.
What was it? I mean, I don't know. I guess the blooper thing's an in-house thing for probably good reason. But one of the running jokes, you guys put together like a blooper reel of all the welcomes, just that had been dumpster fires. And one of my favorite things in that blooper reel was Trey would come and he would fill in, Trey Lee, and he would have to, do the welcomes or whatever else. And there was a couple that were just absolute dumpster fires, like just couldn't get it together.
You guys couldn't see it, but he put air quotes around the term couple.
But last week, Chris, I say all this to say, I heard a story about Chris's salted caramel coming out last week with Trey and the salted fart for sure.
Yeah,
funny.
That was electric. We were in here recording the online welcome with Trey, and it was taking a minute, and Trey was getting a little frustrated, and Trey goes, "I don't know why you even asked me," and Chris says, "I didn't know, and I didn't ask."
It's hilarious.
He's like, "I did not ask. I don't know who asked you to do that."
Yeah.
It was me. I'm the man.
That's so funny.
I think what we figured out is he's really good with teleprompter, because we did a video with him.
Yeah,
or FCA.
Because you guys have done that before.
And so next time, if we do need him, I'm going to write, or Jules is going to write an intro and outro, and he'll kill it.
He will. And I think that that's a good segue, not into the main topic we want to talk about today, but you guys in the community with your business, that's how people in the community know you. Like you're everywhere. You guys are, we joke, you're on staff, but not on staff at the Orchard. You're on staff because you're here all the time working with us, all the time, but you're not on staff because you also have other parts of your job and everything. So let's just kind of talk about that for a minute in way of introduction. Tell us about Thrive Communications, what you guys do, how that works and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it encompasses a lot. Digital marketing is kind of the term that blankets over the whole thing, but video production, social media, photography, website design.
And as I learned before we recorded, apparently infomercials that Chris records as well, because he had that late night TV infomercial vibe going on and he was crushing it. It was great.
He does. That's his vibe for sure. You like to make the videos that are like the old cars salesman.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I feel like he could have had Kenny G playing the saxophone in the background in that video. It would have been great.
It's very calming.
That's right.
Yeah. That's his vibe for sure. But yeah, so we started our business. This month will be 4 years since we started our business together. And yeah, it's kind of evolved as time has gone on. At first, it started out just being really video production and social media management. But it's kind of evolved since then, and we've taken on a lot of projects that, honestly, at the beginning, we were like, all right, I think we can do this. We'll figure it out as we go along. And it's been great. Yeah. Good.
That's good. And you guys super involved in things with the community with that, from the chamber to local businesses to, we were at the Christmas tree lighting this year, and you guys were there doing some video for the church because we were there, but you're also doing video for the event for the, and so I think that's awesome. Just kind of the integration, the way that you guys capture the community. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Do you guys, let me ask you this. Do you guys have any big dreams, visions? Here's what we would like to, where we would like to end up with this whole thing at the end of the day?
I feel like we do have kind of big visions for it, but I think they've changed over time too. Okay. Because whenever we first started, it was very much like, okay, I hope that this can support both of us. And then in December of this year, we hired on our first person to help us. And so it's kind of changed along the way. But a big part of what we do is just telling stories. And so I think that the projects that really fire us up are the ones where we get to share stories. And so that's a big part of what we want to do, is just share those stories that come out of businesses, communities, families, any of that. And so that's probably one of our big goals, is to be able to share those stories on a larger scale.
Which is cool because stories are so powerful, right? We've seen that on the podcast even. Yeah. You get the stories on the podcast, and those are typically the ones that skyrocket, right? This couple's had their lives transformed, or this guy has been walking through this. And I think that's cool. And I think I would say also you guys do such a great job of sharing the stories. I saw some of the stuff that you did for the Boys Ranch, and it's just cool to see how you guys, you bring those stories to life. And that's, your profession, your career to some may not seem like something super important or whatever, but to me, I see the value that comes when you guys can put the story together, you can dress it up, you can package it, and then you can deliver it, because I think it makes a difference. And so it's cool to see the end product with a lot of what you guys do. I personally appreciate that side.
It's really good. And I think, maybe this is like a micro nerd out, but I was reading. We got a button. All right, you should have seen it coming. I should have seen it coming. I was reading a book, and the guy was talking about how, as humans, we are a narrative species. We're a story species. Like, there's no other species on the planet that can tell stories of our past, our dreams, our vision of imagined worlds, And so something about telling stories is at the heart of what it means to be human. And so I think that's really cool.
Yeah, even the bumper this week, right? If you were with us in service, that's a story. It's a couple's story, and they, in just a couple of minutes, walk through the story, and it was phenomenal.
I got to tell you, I got to say, Seth and Amy, they did a great job on that. We recorded Amy first, and she said, talking about their wedding day, Seth forgot the marriage license, and, we always didn't get married, whatever. And so we're kind of chuckling, listening to her tell. Then Seth comes in, and he gets to that part of the story about the wedding day, and he goes, we forgot our marriage license. Yeah. And I think I leaned into Chris's ear, and I was like, we have got to find a way to make that
pause.
But it was good. It was good. I enjoyed it. That was fun. We got a couple more stories coming out the rest of the series. Meet Me at the Altar, all about marriage. Mm-hmm. And that is why we have you guys on the podcast, is because turns out apparently you guys are married.
It's true.
It's true. Word on the street is
juicy.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks.
With that in mind, with the bumper in mind, I have an initial question. I'm putting you on the spot, but I tongue-in-cheek mentioned this Sunday. The biggest moment for Seth in the entire bumper, the fist pump moment.
Oh, yeah.
Was him being able to remember what flowers
he crushed it
were in her bouquet. Chris, if I put you on the spot right now, would you be able to tell me?
Yeah, we did talk
because of my comment in service.
Dang it.
Yeah. I was like, funny. Man, I told the guys in the room, I was like, guys, you, like, beautiful bumper, well done. Your biggest takeaway right now is probably hardly any of that story. It's probably, how in the world did this guy remember what was in his wife's bouquet? Because if I were to survey the room right now, you would probably most likely fail miserably, which is why he gave us a fist bump.
Yeah, he crushed it.
Yeah,
he crushed it.
So that's good.
We kind of did a DIY wedding. We did a lot of the stuff ourselves, so we
love that.
He helped me put together my bouquet.
Yeah. And so it was a lot of it was from Hobby Lobby. Mm-hmm. White and greenery, roses, eucalyptus. Okay. We also have it in our house.
Very good.
So unless, somebody that has real flowers, they didn't preserve it, they probably don't have them.
It's dawning on me that I'm not sure I knew the day of what flowers were in Leanne's bouquet.
I think Katie was
much less
lilies.
remembered.
Yeah, not that he had some specific kind of lily.
Had to be roses.
You think so?
I don't know. I'm not very thinking about it. I think
swimming.
Yeah.
Big,
I don't know.
Big rose guy.
Well, I've been married longer than both of you guys combined, so I'm old.
Yeah, how long have you guys been married?
So we've been married for 5 years.
Okay.
So celebrated 5 years in September.
Okay, great. So fresh 5 years. How has marriage met or unmet some of your expectations up to this point?
So we went through a marriage counseling class type thing before we got married. And we were talking about this last night, that we went through, I think it was 5 or 6 weeks, and we did a different topic each week. And it gave us the chance to have conversations around those topics, right? It was like a special time that we were going to spend talking about that before we got married. And a big part of that was around expectations. And we were talking about it last night, to where we went through and we were like, okay, here's our expectations for marriage. This is what we expect our home to be like. This is what we expect work, life, balance, like all of those things. And I don't think that any of them were accurate to actually what life was or what we actually expected. I think they were like an ideal of what we expected.
Yeah. And
the fact is that we were having those conversations about it.
Exactly.
And so we were able to revisit those conversations and be like, okay, these weren't realistic expectations. Let's manage that to what's more.
Yeah.
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 Were you guys in the second service yesterday? or did you guys come to first service? I mean, you were in both. You came to first service. In the second service, I shared a story about similar things, right? Like you have these expectations of marriage, and the pastor who did marriage counseling with us, he's like, you need to communicate expectations. It's okay to have expectations. You just need to communicate what the expectations are. And the story I shared in the second service was, I remember Katie, when we were engaged, being like, I just can't wait to serve you. I can't wait to do your laundry and do the dishes. And I'm like, this is great. Like, I can't wait for this either. You know what I mean? This is going to be phenomenal. And then very quickly into the first couple months of marriage, expectations changed. We had a conversation about, well, you said this. Well, I'm realizing that maybe I need to pivot on that a little bit, that kind of thing. And that's okay, because you're communicating about those things like you guys said. So that's great. How did you guys meet? So where did, we got some of your marriage story. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to tell it, or do you want me to?
Yeah, our family.
Or we should send you out one at a time. I'm just kidding. We'll send you out one at a time. Have you?
Our families made us awkwardly meet on a Sunday and try to get us to talk in front of them, which didn't work out very well.
It was super awkward. They were like, well, I want you to meet each other. And we were like, okay. And then it was just right there. And they were like, okay, you guys talk. And we were all just standing there with a cover.
Like you're breeding dogs or something. Just stick them in the same pen and hope it works.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. And so that didn't really go anywhere. We were like, hello, nice to meet you. We had both just graduated from college that May.
And it was the same college. No. I thought you guys went to the same college.
We did.
No, it can be confusing because I went to Southeastern University. She went to Nova Southeastern.
Okay. I thought you were both at Southeastern. I got you.
And I, fun fact, was supposed to go to Southeastern. That was the plan. Like up until a couple months before I graduated high school, was that I was going to go to Southeastern. But I had really been praying about it, and I got a call from the admissions office at Nova, and they were like, well, are you coming here or are you not? Like, what's the decision? And I was like, well, I got more financial aid at Southeastern. And they were like, well, how much is it? And I told them, and they were like, well, if I match it, will you come here? And I was like, sure. So that's what I did.
Wow. Jeez. All right. Negotiator off the bat. I love it.
So when you guys met, before college or during?
No,
you on a break
after.
or okay.
We had both graduated in May, and I was back home. I had accepted a job here, and so I was moving back home. And then you were here on a break, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And so our families tried to introduce us. It was kind of awkward. But then when we really met and how we actually started talking to each other and kind of getting to know each other was at our young adults group. At church.
Okay.
And one of my friends was...
Jesus for the win.
Yeah. She was kind of leading everything up. Her and her husband were. And so she handed me a camera and was like, I have to go do something else. Can you go take some photos? And she was like, you graduated with a communications degree. You will be fine with this camera. And I'm like, I've never picked up one of these cameras before in my life. So I walked out and I was like, sure, I can figure it out. And I walked out and I could not quite figure it out.
That's funny.
So Chris was there taking some video clips. He was videoing the event. And so I walked over to him because he was the only other person with a camera. And I was like, hey, I don't know how to use this. Maybe you do. And you could show me. And he was like, I don't know anything about that camera.
Oh, Chris, wrong answer. Chris, wrong answer.
Gosh, Chris.
That's funny.
So then
I was like, everyone's a little bit different. I don't know how to use it.
And they started talking for me.
Yeah, well, but then later in the night, it was kind of awkward because I thought to myself, okay.
I see a theme developing.
I was like, he definitely doesn't want to talk to me, and that's fine. So I just walked away and tried to figure it out.
To be clear, Jules, I would have gotten the same vibe if I was in your shoes. So, yeah.
And so later in the night, I was sitting, and I had been talking to my friend for a while. It was like a bonfire type atmosphere. And so I was sitting talking to her, and she got up to go take someone to their car because they were leaving, and he came and sat down right next to me, and pretty much from then on we realized how much we had in common, and we talked for the rest of the event, and yeah.
I like it.
Were you kicking yourself after the whole camera debacle, and that's why you went and sat next to her?
No,
Chris goes to the mirror. You fumbled that. You got to do better.
Figure it out. Yeah, that's great.
So I got to say, I'd like to hear that awkward conversation with the parents. Number one, legendary. Hats off to both of your parents. Secondly, what was your takeaway from that? What was your initial reaction about each other?
I don't think I thought much of it.
Yeah,
honestly,
I don't know if I did either. I was like, well, he didn't really want to talk to me, and that's fine.
I was like, they're just forcing this. I'd rather talk to her on my own time, and that's why I was like,
but you left saying I would rather talk to her,
right?
Yeah. I like it.
Which is kind of fitting for you, Chris. I feel like you're a guy. You're your personality is wired that you're you don't tell me what to do. I will do what I want to do when I want to do it. You know what I mean? So that checks out. They kind of set you, if their expectations were, this is going to work out, they probably should have gone about it differently in the first place, knowing what I know about Chris.
Chris is the kind of guy somebody says, have a good day. He says, you don't tell me what to do.
That's right. And, I will have a good day on my terms, not on your terms, on my terms. Yeah.
And I prefer that one-on-one than like in a group setting. It just...
Well, that's just weird altogether.
Well, it was just awkward altogether. But it's funny because once we started dating, we started dating and then we were together all the time. And we were like, I don't know if our families actually thought this through because now we don't see them. We just see each other all the time.
Or maybe they did.
Well, so being together all the time has, I guess, developed into a theme in your relationship, which is, part of the unique aspect of your relationship that I thought would be cool to talk about, because not only are you guys married, have been married for 5 years, you've started this business together. Mm-hmm. You now both spend all your time either running the business together or spending time together outside of the business. So like, well, what is that like, being able to do that and have that much time together? I say that, let me preface this, because when Leanne and I were dating, it was long distance dating. I was going to school in Clearwater. She was still living back home, going to school in Madison. And, we got married. I moved from the dorm to the house. She moved from mom and dad's house to the house. And she took that semester off from school, just kind of stay at home. We were newlyweds, hadn't spent a lot of time physically in proximity to each other. And so I'll never forget, like within that first month of marriage, I got done with everything that I needed to do for the week on like Thursday morning. I came in as an associate pastor, and pastor had me a list every week's things he wanted done. And I was done by Thursday morning. And she's like, I'm at the house. And she goes, you don't have anything else you need to do? I was like, no. She goes, you can't think of anything you need to do? I was like, no. She goes, that field needs to be mowed. The church has a mower. Why don't you just go do that? I mean, it was because it was just like we were around each other like all the time. And that was very uncommon for us. So I'm curious, kind of like, how does that work for you? That work-life balance, being with each other as, co-workers and spouse, and do the lines get blurred or they're hard lines? Just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Do you want to say something first?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think we experienced at one point where we were trying to figure out the balance of like, if we're going out on a date, do we talk about work things, or do we try not to talk about work things at all? And that's really hard to do because that's our whole life. And sometimes that we're really excited about a project that we're working on or something that could come up. And I don't think we always get that time to talk about work things while we're doing the work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, because you're trying to be quiet and let other people talk into a microphone or something. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Right. But I will say that we listen to a lot of like marriage podcasts, marriage sermons, like those things before we got married too. And one couple was talking about it and said that they tried to put very hard and fast rules on like, okay, whenever we go out on a date night, we do not talk about work or whatever it is. But we were talking about it, and it feels like, well, if we worked separate jobs, we would talk about our day. And that's like a big part of our day if we were, going out to dinner or whatever we're doing. And also it's good because it's something that makes us both excited. And so we don't put like hard and fast rules on like, we're not going to talk about work. We have kind of decided that if we're on a specific date night or if we're doing something, that we try not to talk about like problems that come up that are going to make us upset or like stress us out.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I do think that like the work-life balance is always just going to be a balance for us. Like, I don't think that there's ever a time where we are like, oh yeah, we're absolutely crushing this balance right now.
Yeah.
I think it just depends on the seasons.
Tell them about tensions, AJ.
Yeah. There's lots of them. Right.
Some you manage.
Oh, right.
Some you solve.
Right.
That would be the one that you wanted.
Yeah.
And I think, it's interesting because Thrive offices are at your house.
Yeah.
And I think, a generation ago, work and home were so different because they were in different physical spaces. There was a commute back and forth. It was two different worlds. But I think the world that we live in today, especially for a couple like you who work from home because you own your own business, the offices are at home, it's a lot more integrated life. And I'm not sure that's not healthier. Actually, no, it's a fiction show, but if Mad Men is anything to do with what work and home life were like back in the day, much healthier place today. So I don't know. I like the idea of you guys not compartmentalizing who you are in your relationship. I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that we've tried to figure out. And there's definitely been seasons where we say, okay, I feel like we're going too far into like, okay, now we're just coworkers because we're trying to get through this really busy season of work. And so I feel like whenever that comes up, we have to be like, okay, we're going to go do something just for us that's not to do with work in any way. And so that's kind of helped us too.
And I think being like creative people, you have to get away and get that mental break to try to see other items that are creative of like, oh, people, paint this a certain way, or cool architecture or something that kind of like gets the creative brain like restarted, because sometimes we find a lull in that.
Yeah, and you don't want to get stuck in an echo chamber either, where like, you've been at it and the only stuff that you've seen, like product you've seen, is your own product, and you kind of want to get away from some of that. So typically, which one of you is more wired to be the initiator of, hey, this is where we're at right now, we need to pivot? Who typically brings that up first?
I would say Jules does.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Salted.
That's probably true.
We'll need to go to hey, let's go to a coffee shop in Gainesville today, or let's plan to do something like this week. You're usually the one that starts those conversations, and I'm like, yes, we do. That's what I've realized is like, before I was like, no, we just need to stay in what we're doing and get this done. But I've realized that I need to listen more. And those seasons, be like, you know what, we do need this. This will be good for us. And then it's one of those things where you will be less productive if you just are in it and don't stop than if you take a break and then come back to it.
We're also highly motivated by deadlines. So
yeah, sure. Man, that's
if you give yourself less time to do it, you'll still get it done. But
I don't remember what the name of that. There's a working theory out there. I can't remember the name of it. But basically, the gist of that theory is that you will use the time that you have allotted regardless of how much you have, right, to meet a deadline. So if you give yourself a week, you will use the week and you will get it done. If you give yourself a month for the same project, you will still use a month to get the same project done. And ever since that theory had been brought up to me, I'm like, yo, this is so true. Like I agree in my life in a nutshell.
I mean, this is me just like, oh, I see that and agree with it, so it must be true, But I think that's right. I think we're a lot more like goldfish than we give ourselves credit for. Incredibly short memories, and will grow to fill whatever space we have, because, if you have that project and there's no deadline, then it's going to take forever. Yeah. Or if I got to get it done in 10 minutes, well, may not be great, but it'll be done, So that's cool.
Yeah. We do say that quite a bit too, of like, people say, oh, well, just when you have time to get this done, don't, think about it too much. I'm like, I'm not going to think about it again if you don't tell me when it needs to be done.
Fair enough. Oh, man.
I like that.
This is maybe a little bit on the more personal side of things, so answer accordingly. But
look, you guys, they're the ones who edit this podcast.
They take out what they want. I know. You guys, so you've done Thrive, just the two of you, right? And it's been your baby, and you've grown it, and it's been awesome. Now you're taking this business that's also been integrated into your marriage, and you're saying, hey, let's let somebody else in on this thing. How has that gone? Did you guys have any proactive conversations about that? Are you seeing some different things on the back end? I'm just curious, walk me through that.
Yeah, we definitely had lots of conversations about it, I would say, for quite a while. And we also knew that we wanted to hire the right person into that role. And so we prayed about it for a really long time. I would say at least for the last year or so, we've been praying about it and been, going back and forth on whether or not, okay, is this the right decision? Is it not? And since we've made the decision, I will say it's been really, really good for us. And we've been very thankful. We kind of feel like humans again, which sounds a little ridiculous to say, but like we have had a couple of days where we're like, oh, it's Saturday and we can just go do something.
Enjoy Saturday,
which has been really nice. And I never want that to come across as like a complaining, because I'm so thankful for what we do and that we get to do it together too. But it's been really cool. And it's even helped us, I think, with having to have another person that we're kind of managing, helps us to manage what we do even better too. And so it's been really cool. And he has a lot of great insight as well, as far as like the business goes and on processes and things. So it's been really nice.
Good. We just call him Baby Deucer. Is that? It's been integrated into the family.
With that. So.
That's good. Deucer Junior.
Deucer Junior.
It's kind of weird.
Come here, Junior. No, it's hilarious. It was interesting because, you get so intertwined, and marriage is already intimate, right? It's already this big thing that you do, just two people on their own, and now you kind of and you have a business wrapped up in the middle of that, and so now somebody else is probably
getting a look not just into your business, but into your marriage in a lot of ways. And so I was just curious how that's gone. But I'm glad that you guys spent a season praying about that, and God's been gracious and gave you somebody who fits that mold, and it's been good.
That's which, I mean, I would say over the last 2 years, we've had 2 people on a project by project basis. We're like, here, can you help design this page, or can you help edit this one video? And it just really depended upon their schedule if it allowed it.
Right.
But then it got to a point with Adam, who's the guy working with us, that the seasons lined up perfectly where he was transitioning, and I was like, if we don't get him to be a part of our business, he's going to be somewhere else for several years, and we're going to miss out on that opportunity.
Yeah. I have so many questions. This is so intriguing to me because most people live together, right? Like most married couples, right? You hope that's the case. And there's a step past living together where you don't just leave your 9 to 5 and then come home and spend the rest of the day together. It's kind of what you guys are doing. And the reason I say it's fascinating is because during COVID, I saw that be wildly, and I guess you kind of alluded to this with your whole, hey, do you have any grass to mow or something like that early on in y'all's long distance? But I saw COVID be so detrimental to so many relationships because it was like, man, I'm not toiling, for one. 2, I have way more time with this person who maybe has become a roommate in more ways than I care to admit. And so how did COVID go for you guys? Was it abnormal? Was it kind of like,
we were married for 4 or 5 months.
Oh, okay. So this, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know that we even felt it was different because we hadn't really gotten into that good of a routine yet, if that makes sense. Like we were still very new into it. And so whenever COVID happened, we were like, okay, I guess this is how it is. And yeah,
we here.
Yeah. And it was honestly really nice that we got all of that time together, though. Once we got married too, it was nice to like have that time together. But yeah, and then within like a year or so, we decided that we were going to start our business together. We both had been doing similar things, and we graduated with very similar degrees. And whenever we got married, we had the conversation of like, eventually we're going to have to come to a crossroad where it's like, do we continue building things separately for other people, or do we build something together?
We're competitors.
Yeah.
I got this bid from them, and I got this bid, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and especially because we're, obviously in the same town, and it was just, it came to a conversation.
Please tell me that at one time you looked at each other and said, there's not room enough in this town for the both of us. That would be electric.
It's not.
Can't say it's exactly how it went, but
a guy can dream. A guy can dream. No.
Okay.
I got a question for you guys, kind of related to expectations, kind of related to your work-life balance, all that kind of stuff. Chris, I'll start with you. What has been, because we bring expectations into our marriage, what has been one thing that you've learned about Jules in marriage that you didn't know ahead of time? So you guys dated, you had an idea of who you were going to be marrying, but in my experience, marriage reveals a piece of your spouse's character or their tendencies that you didn't know was there. What's been one thing that you have seen revealed about Jules that you didn't know because it was revealed in marriage and you didn't see it in any other season?
I think her generosity.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's
not me expecting a negative answer. Yeah, great. That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Great.
And I think she's helped show me how to be more generous with our time, with our money, just helping people out. I don't know, just how she's, there for her friends, there for other people, try to help as best she can.
That's great. That's great. Good answer, Chris. Great job. Jules, I'm going to flip the question for you. Same thing. What's been one of those things that you've learned about Chris in marriage that you didn't know ahead of time?
So one thing about Chris is that he is very, maybe introspective is like the right word. And so whenever we got married, because we didn't live together until after we got married. And so I didn't realize, I guess, how important it was for him to have like alone time or time to just like be. And that's something that I can appreciate that he needs. And like, it took me a couple months, I think, whenever we got married to like feel like that was to like know how to do that or how to like give you that. And I think us working together too has been something that, kind of catapults that too. But that's been something that is good for us though, because I feel like the more like you have that time to yourself and the more like introspective you can be, I feel like the better we are like in our relationship too. So
It takes me time to think about stuff.
It does.
To be able to tell her, like, oh, this is what happened 2 days ago.
Right.
Sure. Well, that's what happens when you're 5. So
Yeah. But I will say that that's one of my favorite things about him is that he is very like careful to make decisions. Like he doesn't just make like snap judgments on things and fly off the handle.
Or it'd be crazy.
Yeah. My man is deliberate.
Yes, he is.
Calculated, if you will.
He is. So,
Yeah,
good.
except with, the man bun and goatee from college. I'm not sure that was very calculated.
that was before me. I don't know.
You're bringing out the best, Jules.
If he would have had that, would you have entertained him, Jules?
See, that's the thing. I told him, I'm like, if we would have met in college, I was very much in a season of, I don't want to be in Lake City. I don't want to be in my hometown. I want something different for a while. I wanted to experience something. So I went to college, 5.5, 6 hours away. If we would have met, I would have been like, oh, the one person from Lake City that's here? No, thank you. So,
Fair enough.
I just want to say I went to a private school, had to be clean shaven, clean cut. And then I worked at Chick-fil-A for 2.5 years.
Oh, man. You went through it.
So after that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to let this grow out.
Yeah, good for you.
See what I can do. And it wasn't good.
Yeah.
You know what? It was okay. It was just, as I told you before, you definitely sacked some hackies. That was the look you had going on back in the day.
Gosh dang.
But you know what? At the same time, that came back to bite me in the butt this week, Chris, and I just got to share it with you so you'll appreciate. We're going through stuff at the house and like cleaning stuff out. And one of the things came across as like an elementary school class picture of Chip, and Chasen was like, oh, I want that picture. And I was like, oh, okay. So he put it in his room because he thought it was funny. And Chase Haddon, the older one, goes in, looks at it, and he comes back out and he says, Dad, what was going on with your hair? Because it was very short, gelled, spiky, like not just up front, like all over, short, gelled, spiky. And he goes, did you change your name to Buzz while you had that haircut, or what's going on? Yeah. So we all have a past, Chris.
Did that sit with you a little bit more than you care to admit? Because you showed up to the office this week with a fade. And I'm kind of connecting some dots here.
Oh, that was like yesterday. The fade,
okay.
The fade's been coming for a minute. Like, hey, look.
The fade's been in the works.
I'm kind of with Chris. Yep. Don't tell me what I'm not going to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'll show you what I'm not going to do.
It looks
I
great.
didn't even have my glasses on until I got back in the truck to see what he did.
Yeah.
I just know when that, razor or whatever got up higher to the top of my head than down where it normally is, I was like, oh, he's going for it, huh?
It looks great. You look great.
It does
Truly
great.
Looks good.
You know what?
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Chip's cynicism is trying to process whether or not I'm joking or being serious. But I'm being serious. It looks great.
You know what? I'll let you feel it after the podcast if you want. It feels nice, right?
He's also processing how to take a compliment. I love you, Chip.
I know.
It's great. I love it.
I have the cynicism was real. That was spot on there. That was good. That was a good compliment.
I know.
The best part of the fade, though, and I wish you'd have been there for this, Chris, is I'm at Perry. My grandma's birthday was Thursday. Went to Perry Friday. Met my dad there. Took her out to lunch with the boys. And my buddy from high school started a barbershop. And he's like, hey, man, come by. I'll hook you up. And so I'm there getting my hair cut. And my dad gets there after I'm getting cut. And he walks in. And then he sees like this fade half in process. And he just looks at me. And that's the second word. And I just feel the judgment rolling again. And I was like, what's up, Dad?
What's up, Pops?
Does he mean to have that happening right now?
I know. It's like, does he know what's going on to his hair right now?
When they cut hair, they cut the sides first. And so I'm sure it looked absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
the top being
Like a
as
chia
long
pet.
as it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but the guy who cut it was definitely not Cuban, and he might have had a wad of dip in his lip while he was doing it. So it's a redneck fade.
Getting faded up by Tyler. That's crazy.
Actually, his name's Mash.
Even better. Even better.
That's funny.
All right, pivoting back a little bit. This past week, we kicked off this series, right? And really the thrust of this message was that marriage is not about you, right? There's a self-centeredness that really, I don't think we fully understand that we're bringing into the equation when we bring it. And so I don't want you to answer this about the other person. I want you to answer this about you. But how have you guys, and maybe I'll let you guys decide who's going to answer first, because about a minute and a half ago, we just decided Chris was calculated and likes to take his time. So I don't want to put him on the spot if otherwise. But how have you guys seen yourself be the biggest problem in your marriage / what self-centeredness, or how does it manifest itself, the self-centeredness show up in your marriage?
When we kind of talked about how I like alone time, And so I think it's managing that to where like I'm not spending all night by myself playing games or doing whatever.
Yeah.
And like just having Jules as like a work spouse, like just working throughout the day and then spending my whole night by myself,
right,
or playing with friends or whatever. And so I think finding that balance where like, okay, I can take an hour to myself and then to make sure that like I'm spending time with her, because if I'm not spending time with her, we're growing apart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's phenomenal.
That's good. That's an interesting concept. Not letting your wife become your work wife.
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept.
I mean, a blender for a second. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So what are some ways that you have, like obviously you can feel it out. You kind of use the feel meter organic, but are there any intentional ways that you've been like, man, I'm going to try to be intentional about this. And so here's the guardrail I'm going to set. Has there been anything? Not that there needs to be, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I would just say I ignore my friends' texts if they're behind me.
Great, that's great.
I'm like, no, I played with you last night. Like,
sorry, not sorry.
20 years in, I feel that.
Yeah, got lots of people vying for his attention. That's what that is.
That's hilarious.
I feel that.
We all have different things, but it's the same problem with just different things. That's great. Jules, what about you? How have you seen self-centeredness kind of leak into your marriage?
I think some of it for me is being self-centered in like what I want out of something, if that makes sense. And so if we're like having a disagreement or trying to figure something out, right, I want to like talk it out and have this whole big monologue. Like I process by talking, like I'm an audible processor. Mm-hmm. And so I know though that like if I'm trying to have a conversation with Chris and he's really quiet, I used to think, oh, he doesn't care, or he doesn't have anything to say, he doesn't have anything to add to this conversation. It's just me like here on my own. But
Chris is processing.
Yeah, Chris is just processing. And so I think something that I've had to like try to be less selfish about, and I don't always do great at this, is giving him the space and the time to like process whatever it is.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I can tell that I like selfishly have this desire of wanting to talk it out now and to like get it sorted now and to express how I feel or how he feels or whatever it is. And so I think that that's been something kind of reoccurring that I've tried to be a little bit more intentional about, being like, okay, I know that I just told you a lot of things. I just dumped everything on you. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about it before you have to respond, or we have to like figure this out.
So I think for me, like in the moment, I'm trying to be better at like, okay, here's my thought process of what I'm thinking while you're saying, like, I'll just dump it back to you, like what I'm thinking. And that's really hard for me to do because I'm like, this isn't really thought out. Yeah, perfect. But this is my thought process along and along.
Right.
And I think that kind of helps a little bit of back and forth in that way.
So I'm interested. Do you think the work situation makes that harder or easier? Because I could kind of see both. You know, I could see it as it could make it harder in some ways because there's a lot more problems that you're having to work through. But I could also see it as easier because you've got a lot more practice having those conversations.
I would say it's easier.
I would say easier too, yeah. Because we do kind of deal with conflicts in whatever way that arises.
We're two different people, and so we come at a project two different ways. Mm-hmm. And so if we're like designing something, I'm going to design it totally different than she had in mind, or she'll try to communicate that, or I'll try to communicate and it'll look different. And so I used to get really upset where I'd spend a lot of time designing something, and then there would be one specific part of the design that would take me super long because I'm trying to figure it out. And that would be the one thing that you'd be like, I hate that.
Yeah. And she's salted caramel, so she will say, I hate that.
But in my defense, I would walk in and think, well, I don't like that. It doesn't look like what we said we were going to do. And he'd be like, well, I spent so much time on that. And I'm like, well, I don't know why you did that.
Yeah. That's what's so funny to me about you guys is I've seen that. Jules has a very good eye, like a very good feel meter. Like she can walk in, assess the situation very quickly and say, nope, like that, don't love that. This needs to change. And so you're very good at that. So I can see how you got calculated Chris, who's like, here's an idea. I'm going to run with it. I'm going to process through it. I'm going to spend intentional time. And then just here comes the feeler walking in the room saying, nope, that's not it. That's not the vibe. We're bailed.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's something that we say a lot too, is that whenever I talk, I say, I feel like, or I'll say, I just feel like that's what we should do. And whenever he's talking, he says, I think that. And so we do have that conversation quite a bit of like, I'm the feeler and he's the thinker.
I think most relationships have the feeler and the thinker. Yeah. I think that's good. Also, as you're talking about that with Chris, I know exactly what you're talking about because there's been a couple of times that he's like done a graphic for us and AJ be like, hey, can you change the font? Yeah, sure. What about this? Can you change it again? How about this? I'm not loving that. Okay. Okay.
So I'm similar to you, and like I don't know that I could generate this or birth it, but I can definitely give you a feel for like, I'm loving that, I'm not loving that kind of thing. So me and Jules tag teaming Chris, not fun. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But I also think that it's super common, at least in my experience, just with other couples and whatnot, to have the one who processes and have the one who processes out loud and like in the minute. And I think it's so funny because for you, Jules, you're probably thinking, well, the faster we get this out, the faster we resolve it. And then the faster the tension's gone. And Chris is like, well, I don't just want it to go away. I want it to go away the right way. Yeah. And I want to like solve this the right way and not just get it out there. And so I just see that so often where it's like, there's usually one of each in a relationship, which opposites attract and all that kind of stuff. But it's just funny because you don't, there's not a solution. There's not a right and a wrong. There's just two people who navigate it differently, and you got to figure out, all right, what's the common ground? What's something that works for us when this happens? And that's why I ask, like, all right, what does that self-centeredness look like? And then how have you intentionally combated it? Because I think realizing it is one thing, but it's not enough for me to realize I'm a selfish piece of crap in my relationship with my wife, right? I have to figure out, okay, I'm just going to live there. Yeah, that's good. I'm self-aware enough to know it, but not willing to change it, right? That's not a good place to be. So I think that's good.
You know, one thing that's been interesting to me as we have recorded, you know, and I say we, you know, me and Chris and Jules been in the room recording these stories of these couples, is the phrase that kept coming up is, well, they really balance me. They really balance me. Mm-hmm. And when I was preaching at Live Oak this Sunday, I made a comment about the line from Jerry Maguire, "You complete me," right? And I said, I would love to see a study on the divorce rates before and after Jerry Maguire, because that phrase, "you complete me," is all about, well, I need something from you. You've got to fulfill me. You've got to satisfy me. It's up to you, you know, all this stuff. And that's a road that leads to nowhere, because that's a burden that's too big for any person to carry. And it's a very selfish way to look at marriage. You complete me. I'm lacking, so I need you to give me what I don't have, no matter what that takes from you. Yeah. But yet you balance me is, I think, the healthy side of that. Yeah. We are made to complement one another, but complementing one another is different than completing one another. Yeah. So, like, in what ways do you see that in your marriage and in your work, with you guys really complementing each other? Like, the think and feel, I think, might be a good example of that.
Well, this is something that Chris has always said since we got married, and we actually have something on our wall that says it, but he always just says that we're better together. And I think that's something that is true in our work. It's true in our marriage. It's true in a lot of areas of our life. And so as far as complimenting each other, I think that, like, whereas I can be very like high strung and have like those emotional like sides of things, Chris is very quick to bring me back to like the calm and the rational side of things. I would say that I bring out some of his more like outgoing tendencies too, because I feel like out of the two of us, I'm more extroverted than he is. I feel like there's a lot of different ways that we complement each other in work and in just our marriage.
Yeah. It's good. Confirm or deny, Chris?
Yes. Yeah.
It's good.
He's processing.
Sorry. That's on me. My bad. I need an answer now.
I like to go back to the generosity thing. Like, being a 5, I'm very selfish with a lot of things. My time, with my money, with my margin, however you want to say that. And so I think to be generous with part of it, whether that's just within our relationship or with other people, that can be hard for me at times. And so I think that's how she helps balance me out in that way.
I love that. Yeah, so we've said twice now, Chip said it early, and Chris just said it, being a 5. What we're referring to there is the Enneagram, right? Which is, I think, a phenomenal personality test. There's so many out there. All of them are, well, not all of them. So many are great. Enneagram is just, I think, very specific and does a great job of giving you insight. And the Enneagram 5 that we've referred to Chris as twice now is called the investigator. And so you're alert, insightful, curious, but you're also able to concentrate and focus. And some of that probably does take some level of like, well, I need the me time, if you will, to go in.
5s are the most aware of their own emotional tank. They know when it's running low, and they're like, I'm going to step back for a minute. And I think that's good.
If you want to find out more, there's this great book by Matthew Stephen Brown. He's a pastor at Sandals Church in California. And It's called A Book Called You.
Huh.
And he actually did a sermon series on it, probably like 5 years ago. And in each sermon series, he would relate the number to someone in the Bible.
Wow. I love that.
And we watched that before we got married,
That's
actually, for like each of our personalities.
Are you mad you didn't think of that? Are you fuming right now?
No.
All right, just checking.
I feel chip about this book.
Yeah, that's true. That's
still
right.
time.
That's right.
Yeah.
So he takes those messages that he did, a 9-week sermon series, because there's 9.
That's sick.
And then made it into this book. It's really good.
Dude, I love that.
Yeah.
Can you? Hey, Chris, can you put that in the show notes?
That's funny.
Can you do that for us? That's great.
You know, so what the Enneagram really is it's not necessarily a personality quote test, right? Because I tell people all the time, if you're taking a test online, it's going to give you a crap answer, but it's going to give you what you wish you were.
Yeah.
Right.
What the Enneagram is a way of understanding how we each view the world, because we all view the world differently, but then we assume that our way is the normal way.
Yeah.
Right. And there's just a different lens that we view the world through. And that makes us aware of some things. And so, you know, one of my favorite sayings about the Enneagram is every type and every number has a superpower, right? And with that superpower also comes a little bit of kryptonite, you know. And so for like Chris with a 5, they are the ones who can be extremely objective and thorough and deliberate, but yet that means that to do that, they often retreat within themselves and isolate.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful not to isolate while being able to process.
I can only trust the most objective guy in the room. Oh, by the way, that's me. So I'm going to sit over here with me and figure this thing out, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, which something we talk about a lot with the Enneagram is that it really gives you a full spectrum of like really unhealthy, kind of unhealthy tendencies, and then
Yes,
your healthiest
right.
self.
Yeah.
And so
there's a healthy 5 and an unhealthy 5.
it really doesn't make you feel great about yourself,
Yeah.
to be honest.
No.
But it's a good like gauge of, okay, I'm starting to do this. That's probably leaning a little unhealthy. So we need to like figure out what we can do to bring us back to the healthy side.
That's good. So you guys are pretty familiar. What is yours? What's your number, Jules?
I'm a 2.
Shocked. I am.
A 2 at wing 3.
I love that. That's great. Is that's the caretaker, right? Is what the label for that is?
I don't remember all the laters.
Yeah.
Different places describe it differently, but 2 is very much the sensitive to others, focused, others need.
Yeah.
So I would say I'm a 2-wing 3 or a 3-wing 2.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's a 2-wing 3. But I think I just flip personalities when, you know, we get in the office or it's a work project, right? To what I'm sure you relate to.
Yeah.
But what's funny is they say 2-wing 3s can read the person, and I know what you need more than you know what you need. And 3s can read the room and kind of see, okay, what do we need to do to get this thing, you know, going and everything. So it's very much I feel, right?
Yes, yeah.
And that's so that's interesting. And I will say personally that the Enneagram was a very helpful tool for my marriage. Not that it helped me understand me, which it did. It helped me understand my wife, right? Because I understood more of how she saw the world and what was going on in her head. And that made things like click for me. And my favorite example of this is that Leanne is a type 1, which is the perfectionist, you know. And I joke that she's a 1-wing 1, you know, like she's,
Most of them are.
she can walk into a room and let you know everything that's wrong with it in about 30 seconds. All the ceiling tiles that need to be changed. You see that stain on the carpet, that one book on the bookshelf's upside down. Like, I mean, she just, and the superpower part of that is that she can make anything better. Like, there's nothing that she can't make better because she sees where it can be better. The downside of that is you can't turn it off, and it creates an internal critic in your head, you know. But, and here's where the turn comes. I hate going to the beach. The beach is the desert by water. I don't understand the attraction of being salty and sandy. It's not my thing. She loves the beach. She absolutely loves the beach. She is probably her happiest self at the beach. And listening to somebody teach on the Enneagram, they said that is not uncommon for ones, and not necessarily the beach particularly, but nature in general, because that is the one place that they don't see things that need to be fixed. they don't see how this needs to be fixed, how to make it better, because God's already fixed it. God's, made it better. And so their brain can find a little bit of peace because it's not seeing everything that needs to be changed. And I was like, well, crap, now I feel like I need to go to the beach more, and I don't like the beach, but I'm a 2. So I'm like, hey, if she wants to go to the beach, let's go to the beach. So
hear me out. The deer stand. Also nature. Also doesn't need fixing.
I don't think that's what
Take Leanne to the woods, baby.
What if I told you she grew up in the woods?
Beautiful. Even better. She's already familiar. That's great. I love that.
That's good. How about my 7 over here not processing any negative emotions?
No, yeah, that's why I hate the beach. The negative version of the 7 they suppress the negative emotions. They'd rather stay busy than deal and sit with their own negative thoughts.
Yeah, Chris and AJ are polar opposites on the sitting and processing side of things, and yet what's so funny is like how quick they hit it off when you guys started working at the church and everything. It was like the Chris and AJ vibe going on. It was awesome.
I love Chris.
Which they have the triads. Yeah, break it down. Yeah, you're feeling your head.
Are you trying to get us to do an Enneagram podcast or episode of the series of the podcast?
Well, let me bring it full circle. It is incredibly helpful because 2 summers ago, I don't know if you guys were there, we did the marriage study here over the summer. That was kind of like our first formed series that we did, like extra on a night of the week throughout the summer. And one of the things Angie did was she said, hey, the first week we're all going to be taking a personality assessment so that you know who your partner is if you've never done this before. And I think for so many people that was incredibly helpful, because now they're not just viewing the person across from them or looking at them, they're viewing them through the lens of, oh, this is why they tick the way they tick. This is why they think the way they think. This is how it's going to help me, like Chip said, understand them better in the way that they process things. And I think when you come into, and we said this Sunday, when you come into the marriage with the expectations that that person is here to serve me, then you don't consider those things, and stuff gets haywire very quickly. But when I approach the marriage the opposite way, which is how can I serve them, I do want to know how they tick. I do want to know what makes them feel. I do want to know what brings them joy and love and all that kind of stuff. So I think the personality part of the equation is important in life, period, because I think it breeds self-awareness. Shameless plug. I think every high school should teach a self-awareness class, maybe colleges too. But I think specifically in marriage, the personality assessments, tests, whatever you want to call them, are super helpful because now I can get to know the inner workings of my spouse in a way that otherwise I wouldn't have thought through. So it's cool that you guys
as long as you're self-aware enough to actually mark reality and not aspirations.
Yeah. And that's why I can't.
I'll tell you, that's the danger of those tests. What's great is having somebody like Angie, like you said, be able to walk through that with you. I think, so if you are a couple looking for those things, it doesn't have to be a counselor or a class, but if there's just friends, somebody that who's gone through something like that before, we are by nature blind to what we're blind to, and we could be objective about everything in life except ourselves, and so having somebody who can go through that with us, and as a couple can be really, really helpful.
And those tests aren't the end all be all. No. They're just a tool to kind of help you learn a little bit more about yourself. And it's not an excuse either, like, oh, this is just who I am, so I'm just going to be this way. No.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Just know your negatives so that you can improve those things and be better at it.
Yeah, that's great.
And a big part of us working together, I guess, has brought this out a lot too, is like playing to our strengths and our weaknesses, or really playing to our strengths, I guess, and where we can balance each other out, like you said. And so that's something that, there are certain personality traits that we're like, okay, we need to work on these things. We're going to put that at the forefront of what we're doing. Or, okay, you're naturally better at this. It's going to be a lot better if you just handle this side of things. And I think the Enneagram has helped us a lot to understand why someone does something, whether it's, I don't know, like it can be almost annoying whenever this thing keeps coming up, but you have to know why, like what's the why behind that. And I think the Enneagram's helped us a lot to do that.
Play to our strengths, manage our weaknesses.
Yeah. I love that. Let me ask you this before, because we're kind of getting to the hour mark here. If I was listening to this and I needed what you guys offer with marketing or whatever else, how would I get in contact with you?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook page and an Instagram for it's ThriveCom Media. And then you also can visit our website and learn more about what we do and send us a message on there.
Great. This segment's brought to you by Thrive Communications. I love it. All right, last question, unless you got one, Chip. Do you have anything? Last question. Jules, what has been or what is your favorite thing about Chris?
Just one.
Yeah, just one.
Wow.
Just one. Your favorite.
That's it. That's the caramel coming out right there.
No bonus points for 2. Just one.
I think my favorite thing about Chris is how, since I met him, he has been very secure, if that makes sense. Like, I've never questioned where he stands with me or with other people or in any situation. And it's been really nice to have that security to know, okay, he has my best interest in mind. He loves me. He cares about me. No matter what else is going on, it's been really nice to have that.
I love that. That's good. That's phenomenal. And then, Chris, what has been your favorite thing about Jules?
I would say that she gets me out more, because I don't realize how much I need that to be able to get out and go shopping or go to a coffee shop or something. Like, even though I can, when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to hate doing whatever this is, but it's, you know, we get to spend that time together. I get out, get to see different things, like get out of that echo chamber.
What a
myself.
Five. What a healthy five. Once you're in it, you enjoy being in it, but the thought of going to be in it is not appealing.
Yeah.
And Jules helps you get there.
That definitely gets to the point I'm like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. All right, let's
good.
go on. All right, so then last question, Chris, what's your least favorite thing about I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right, we had a full circle there. I love it. I love it. Hey, I appreciate you guys coming on. I think it's good. You guys are often behind the scenes, so I'm glad this morning, and whenever people listen to this, you're going to get to be out in the front a little bit, because you're two great people, and I think our people will be better for that. And I think it's great calling your part, Chip, saying this is a great work-life balance conversation. Bring them in. So I think it'll be good. I love you guys. Excited to see what this does and how it's helpful. Well, AJ, we'll say too, we've enjoyed having you hosting Let's Talk About That, and it has been a fun 59 episodes. 59 episodes. Isn't that crazy? That is crazy. That's wild. Flew by. That's wild. I guarantee you that the next season of Let's Talk About That is not going to have as much discussion about turkeys.
Probably not.
Maybe. Well, depends on who you guys get. I don't know. I mean, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Our fantasy football, I don't know.
Oh, I'm talking about fantasy. Down. That was me, not AJ. That was me. That's great. That's great. Yeah. So, but it's been fun, and I'm sure that if we can catch you back home on a Monday or so, you know, we'll start your guest appearance list. Yeah, I love it. That's great. Yeah, Chip told me the other day, you're not dying, you're leaving. So we'll be back. We'll be back. Yeah. Say it again. I'll be back. I'll be back. There it is. There it is. All right. Well, hey, join us next week, and we're going to launch season 2 of Let's Talk About That. Love it. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk About That. We hope it encouraged and challenged you as we continue to grow in this journey of faith and embrace community. If you have more questions, thoughts, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us through our social media channels or visit our website and stay connected. Your questions are what make this podcast a dynamic and enriching experience. If you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your engagement helps us spread the message and connect with others who may find value in these conversations. Until next time, we hope this episode inspired you and will help you bring Sunday's message into your week ahead. Keep the conversation alive, and remember, we're all on this journey together.